Hi, I am back to doing podcasts and videos for meta mentoring, and it took me a really long time to feel like I was ready to come back to doing this work. And it was actually noticing how long it took me to feel safe and comfortable to return that inspired this particular episode. So I'm really glad you're here. I'm going to share a little bit today about co-regulation, resilience, and I also am going to bring in Dr. Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory, just to sort of tie it all in together. So thanks for listening. If you want to contribute to the work that I'm doing, please share my work with others who you think it might resonate with. Follow me and engage with me on social media. And also please leave a comment or a review so that other people can find my work a little bit more easily. All right, let's jump in. As I shared, it took me a really long time to feel comfortable returning to this work. And I really love this work, so that kind of surprised me. When I was diagnosed with my very rare autoimmune lung disease, and after I received treatment, I thought, a couple of weeks and I'll be right back at it. That was not the case. It took months for me to not only recover physically, but also emotionally. I was not prepared for the types of emotions that I found myself navigating. And as I went through that process of trying to figure out where I'm at and how do I function in this world, I noticed a couple of things happening. So the first thing that I noticed happening is this idea of retunement. So all of us had been tucked away at various points during the pandemic. And when things started to open up again and we were able to re-enter the world, many of us had already retuned to being in a tighter, smaller social world. So I love this idea of retunement because I noticed when I was getting sick with my disease that my body was morphing in all kinds of really interesting ways just to keep me alive. I was losing weight and different systems were shifting to accommodate my lungs that were having a lot of trouble just functioning. And so it was really interesting to see how my body would physically retune to adjust to the new environment it found itself in, this new way of being where certain systems weren't functioning the way my body was used to them functioning. So, my body was finding alternatives. Isn't that amazing how our bodies can do that? I think it's so interesting, though, that not only can we have physical retunement, and we do have physical retunement all the time, but we can also have a social retunement. So in the pandemic, everyone's tucked away, living these lives that are a little bit less social. And when things open up, and we can go out in the world, we've become accustomed to being a little quieter, being a little bit more introverted, connecting a little bit less. So just like my body, now that I'm doing better, is retuning itself so that I can function with a little bit of a stronger homeostasis than what I had before. I still have the disease, but my body is adjusting and figuring out how to navigate with this. Socially, re-entering after the pandemic, we were all doing the same thing. Maybe you noticed that once you could go out and see people, you didn't want to be engaging in the world the way you had before. Maybe going out every night of the week felt too exhausting now that you had retuned to being a little bit quieter and a little bit more of a homebody. Maybe certain relationships that were fine before, maybe they weren't your favorite relationships, but you knew how to manage them. Maybe now they felt overwhelming. Maybe even some really great relationships. You were so used to, having more quiet in your life. Maybe even great relationships also felt overwhelming. That's because of this retunement. So I think everyone in the world was experiencing retunement after the pandemic. But because of the timing of my disease and my reemergence into the world, I've been a little bit behind everyone else. I've been experiencing this retunement after the pandemic, and I've also been experiencing a retunement of life now living with this disease. So I've kind of experienced a double retunement, and it's been taking more time. With this disease, I've also had some changes with my body. So as I mentioned, I have this disease. It's going to be with me for the rest of my life. And with this disease, I'm in the process of figuring out what my new physical needs are. What kind of risks are safe for me to take? What kind of risks are not safe for me to take? And it's an ongoing process of figuring that out because things are constantly changing in my body and things are constantly changing in the environment in terms of what the illness looks like and the tools that are available to help overcome an illness if I were to get infected. So this process of trying to figure out what my new needs are has taken a long time. And just like anytime you have new needs that you become aware of, that means that your boundaries are probably going to be examined too. And I've been doing a lot of that work, re-examining every relationship, even tiny little, trips to the grocery store, rethinking how I do that. What kind of things do I need to feel safe? And it's not just physical safety. I think that has been one of the biggest surprises for me is that my emotional safety, that's been really tricky to navigate. I'm really paying attention to who in the world is going to be supportive of the physical needs, the physical requests that I have of them, but I'm also really paying attention to who is able to respond with care and compassion given these new emotional needs I have. I'm feeling really vulnerable. I'm in need of more protection and more care. And I'm looking around at all of the folks who were in my very big social circle before the pandemic, and I'm really paying close attention to who feels safe now. It's taking a long time to sift through every relationship and re-examine basically every boundary that was in place before and how did they respond before, how are they responding now. It's exhausting work. Although it's exhausting work, this process of re-examining what my feelings are, re-examining what my needs are, establishing new boundaries, and then sort of reaching out and testing them and seeing how people react, that is part of my resilience building. So I'm checking my own safety. Sorry, sometimes I still have trouble talking. I'm checking my own safety constantly. And I mean, we all are. However, my senses are a little more heightened right now. I'm a little more sensitive to who is saying what about things that I need to do to stay safe, who is available in terms of responding with care and compassion to the situation I've found myself in. You know, who's safe and who's not. And this brings me to this definition, I guess, of resiliency. So, and I'm going to lean on Dr. Stephen Porges' definition of what resiliency is. But it's this idea of stepping out of your safety zone and then being able to return to your safety zone. And that when I'm saying safety zone, I'm referring to basically homeostasis. So something pushes me out of my usual way of doing things, my comfort zone. Am I able to return to homeostasis? And and sort of cultivate that sense of safety again. That, in essence, that returning back and forth, how I'm able to respond, that is the essence of resilience. The key to resilience, at least in terms of Dr. Stephen Porges' idea of what resilience is, this idea of being out of homeostasis and being able to come back to homeostasis, that idea of resilience is really built upon our ability to cultivate a sense of safety. And we don't actually cultivate this sense of safety by ourselves. And I'm going to go on and share more about that very soon. But when we create this sense of safety, when we're finding a way back to our sense of safety, it's within that safe zone of where we're in homeostasis and we can respond to the world in ways that are pro-social, respond to the world in ways that are compassionate and caring and curious and collaborative. When we're in that space, that's where we also do our healing, our learning, and just our overall maturation and development as human beings. It's within that safe space that we're able to do those things. So this ability to build resilience, to me, is also really synonymous with learning and healing. I'm going to share a little bit now about the polyvagal theory. So Dr. Stephen Porges, his name is attached to this. There were lots of other people who've contributed to this theory. But anyway, polyvagal theory. It's in the broadest sense, it's this idea that when we are feeling safe as human beings, we are able to act in pro-social ways, in ways that are open and warm and collaborative and connected to others. And that's how human beings have evolved. We are where we are today because of our capacity to problem solve together and to support one another. So when we are feeling safe, we can act from that part of our brain. When we are not feeling safe, we act from a different part of our brain. And if we're not feeling safe, but we still have a sense of power or mobility, we will either leave or fight back in some way. If we are not feeling safe and we don't have a sense of power or mobility, we will shut down, disassociate. So both of those places are a withdrawal from human connection and human interaction. And it's really so fascinating to me that we have this capacity to protect ourselves in these ways. And I want to be really careful about how I describe these responses, because I don't want to paint one set as bad and one set as good. These are just the responses we have to the stimuli we're receiving in our environment in the moment, the responses we have based on our experiences in the past of what we've received from our environment. And interestingly, it's also based on the experiences that our co-regulators, the people that we're reaching out to for help, their experiences are showing up in their ability to help us co-regulate and influencing us in our present day experiences when we are feeling unsafe. Interesting, huh? Our bodies are constantly picking up on cues from our environment to let us know if we are safe or not safe. So our nervous system is constantly paying attention to all sorts of little nuances in our environment and signaling us before our brains can even process what's happening. It's happening so quickly in our nervous system that whenever you're seeing someone react, you're actually seeing an expression of whether they feel safe in that environment or whether or not they don't feel safe in that environment. If they feel safe, you're probably getting some pro-social responses from them: warmth, connection, supportiveness, curiosity, openness. If they're not feeling safe, you're probably getting some detachment. Maybe they're trying to leave, maybe they're arguing or getting really rigid about how things need to be for them. Maybe they're kind of totally numb and totally checked out. So whatever behavior you're seeing in another person, it's really and truly just an expression of how they're feeling in this environment, what they're picking up, what they have received in the past. That's signaling to them whether this is a safe environment or not, and what their caregivers have received in the past and what their caregivers have offered them when they have needed support. I like to think of it as, this retreat, this need for safety. It's almost like shrinking and then slowly opening up as you feel safe again. And I think I feel that way because I've just experienced it. And I'm not sure if this is true for others, but I know it's certainly true for me. That feeling of shrinking and then slowly checking the boundaries, slowly moving out in concentric circles, trying to understand what feels safe and what doesn't feel safe. That process contributes to my sense of safety. So imagine if you shrink, but each time you try to stretch out in your concentric circles, you're looking to co-regulate with others, you're looking for feelings of safety from others. Imagine each time you do that, the messages you receive are that you are unsafe, or that this is not a place where you can relax and heal and learn and grow and connect. So this process of shrinking and then slowly finding safety and working your way out, it is such a beautiful, protective process. So I mentioned that our ability to heal and grow and become resilient is related to the co-regulation that we have received. So when we're reaching out in our efforts to feel safe, if we receive back support, care, compassion, things that make us feel safe and understood, then we're more likely to, first of all, to feel safe and to feel like we can reach out again and take on more risks again. But we're also, as we reach out and go back and forth between reaching out and coming back to safety, that process of reaching out, needing co-regulation to bring us back to safety, we're actually learning to self-regulate in that space also. Learning is happening in that space. So we're learning to become more resilient to challenges, and perhaps that idea of more resilient is that self-regulation. As we are moving into that safe space, we move back into a space where we can be reflective, where we can connect with ourselves and connect with others, where we can heal. So expecting somebody to self-regulate without having lots of rich, warm experiences of co-regulation, it's really not possible. Is it possible to self-regulate without experiences of co-regulation? To a degree, I suppose, but certainly the fastest route is with this warm, nurturing, supportive, caregiving environment from other human beings. We can't force people to feel things that they're not feeling. So if a person is not feeling safe, maybe they can figure out ways to cultivate their own safety over time, but truly the fastest way is to offer that supportive, nurturing space. So, as we're exploring this idea of co-regulation, what does it look like if you reach out to your support network and either they are experiencing trauma themselves, so they can't respond in connected, pro-social ways, or maybe there's other things that are making it difficult or impossible for them to respond to your bids for co-regulation. If we're asking for co-regulation and we're not receiving it, we're not receiving messages of safety, we can stay in that feeling of unsafety for extended periods of time. And keep in mind, human beings, that process, it was meant to be a short-term process. It can keep you safe, but you're not going to be doing any learning in that unsafe space. You're not going to do any healing in that unsafe space. You won't be able to collaboratively solve problems and get along with other people as easily when you're in that unsafe space. So we weren't meant to be there long. We were meant to sort of move towards more pro-social behavior as human beings. So if you're feeling like you need support from others to feel safe, and you're reaching out and you're not receiving it, you might find that you're staying in this state of fear or state of trauma yourself. There's my dog barking. If you find that you've reached out to a caregiver and like either the co-regulation has been inconsistent, or they haven't been able to show up in the ways that you need, you're not going to feel safe consistently, and you might find that you flip over into fight or flight very easily. So maybe you're flipping over easily because you're feeling extra sensitive to your environment, because you've been receiving cues that it's questionably safe here. And maybe you're also misinterpreting the cues from other people as being unsafe, when in fact that wasn't potentially what they were trying to convey at all. So when people are in these reactive states of fight or flight, it's not that they're trying to be bad or do bad things, or shame on them for not being able to access something different. They can't possibly access something different until they're receiving this co-regulation and a deep sense of safety, so that they can then reach out in their concentric circles and receive what they need to heal, to learn, to achieve more growth and maturation. These mechanisms of wanting to reach out and co-regulate, and if we don't find it, retreating in some way so that you can access another form of safety that's more individualistic. It's a little bit more closed off and shut down, but it will keep the individual safe. It's really amazing that our bodies, our human bodies, have reacted in ways that can keep us safe. And I want to point out again that it keeps the individual safe, but it doesn't serve the human collective. So we were really not designed to stay in that space. We were always designed to keep moving towards this pro-social behavior. We seek out safety, and we pay attention to the unsafe stuff. So we weren't meant to stay in these places of hypervigilance and fight or flight, or states of ongoing trauma or really deep trauma. We were, human beings learn to survive by working together, offering each other softness, offering each other safety, And that safety doesn't necessarily have to mean physical safety. It can also mean, understanding the other person, holding them when they are feeling big feelings. And I think that a lot of the work around adverse childhood experiences really supports this, the findings in polyvagal theory. Polyvagal theory helps support adverse childhood experiences studies. This idea that the more adverse experiences you have, the more often you're pushed out of your homeostasis, the more often you're enduring long-term stress and not able to feel this sense of safety, not able to co-regulate, the more often you're in that space, adverse childhood experiences are showing us that those folks who grew up as children with less safety, less predictability, less stability, they are more likely to have poor health outcomes. If they get sick, it's harder for them to recover, if they recover at all. They're more likely to get sick in the first place. They're more likely to experience addiction, which is that dissociation that I was talking about. They're more likely to have problematic relationships, both interpersonally and sort of with their community, more likely to be arrested. So this idea of adverse childhood experiences, the more often as children we experience stress, pushing out of our homeostasis, but not being able to come back to safety, it has long-term effects. And I think that understanding our experiences, or experiences that folks might have as children, can help us have more compassion for the folks in our community who are, just responding to their environments based on their past experiences. Again, adverse childhood experiences, those studies have taught us that the antidote to having these adverse childhood experiences is actually co-regulation. So crap's gonna happen in life. Things are gonna happen. And when we have other people in our lives that can help us co-regulate, that can give us a sense of safety when everything else feels upside down and chaotic, that is the antidote to this stress. That creates this sense of safety despite the experiences we might be feeling in our lives. And with that in mind, I'm talking about adverse childhood experiences right now, and it's looking at the experiences of children, and then how does that translate to adult lives. I want to point out that co-regulation is for everyone. While we might think of co-regulation as something that is for babies or toddlers or even young children, the truth is, throughout our lives, we are going to be looking to other human beings to co-regulate, and that's really healthy. Reaching out when things feel overwhelming to us, that's really healthy pro-social human behavior. That's a sign that, our concentric circles, we're trying. It's how we build resilience, by reaching out to someone who is safe, someone who can hold us in our moment of feeling off and unsafe and unsure or angry or upset. That gentle guidance to hold us and to help us back into our sense of safety so that we can be pro-social again too. So important. I think a lot of parents in particular think that or maybe not a lot of parents, maybe I should back that up a little bit. There is an underlying theme in our culture related to self-regulation, and this idea that you need to teach someone to self-regulate by leaving them on their own. It's like this individualism run amok. And in truth, to build up that self-regulation, the fastest, most effective way to do it is actually through co-regulation. So allowing someone as much co-regulation as they're requesting is the fastest way for them to move back and forth, out of homeostasis, back to their sense of homeostasis and safety. The more often they do that, the more resilient they're becoming, and that little resiliency allows them to stretch further the next time. And maybe they don't need as much co-regulation the next time, or maybe they don't need it at all. Maybe they're totally self-regulating under those particular circumstances. So this idea that co-regulation creates dependency is really false, and it's not serving humanity. So yeah, back to like my little scenario. I was totally unprepared for how emotional this journey would be for me in terms of getting a diagnosis when I was feeling so ill, receiving treatment, healing from the treatment, and now trying to figure out how to relive life in the world again. And I didn't know that I had the retuned piece that all of us were experiencing. My retuned was different because I had the added layer of now having this new disease diagnosis. So there were new physical risks and there were new emotional risks involved for me also. But this re-entering the world, it felt so scary. And I really could not return to sharing with all of you until I had really cultivated that sense of safety for myself. And that sense of safety involved, being able to like go out into the world a little bit. And when I stretched too far, who can I trust to hold me and help me get back to that sense of safety? That was especially important for the emotional parts of re-entering the world and navigating life with this new disease diagnosis. So yeah, it took me a long time to get here where I can share openly again with all of you and do the work that I love. But I'm really happy that I'm here and that you're here and that you must be in a space of safety too right now, because you are open and learning and looking to connect. So yeah, yay for us. Yay for us. And also I feel a deep sense of gratitude because I recognize that not everyone has had the co-regulation and support network that I've had to help me navigate this in a way that I'm hoping is building resiliency in the long run. And it's not to say that I haven't had moments that I've been a complete wreck, because I absolutely have. And, some of those things I kind of predicted would happen based on past experiences, but, some things have really caught me off guard. And, with that in mind, I'm going to do a little plug for my next podcast and video. I'm going to share an example of what co-regulation looks like. And it's not in real time, we're reflecting after the fact, but I'm inviting in my support network to reflect with me on how they helped me to co-regulate when I was feeling way outside of homeostasis, feeling a lot of stress over a situation, and they helped to give me that sense of safety. And I'm going to explore it so that you can kind of get an understanding of how the elements of co-regulation and what they might look like. So I hope that you'll check me out the next time that my next podcast comes out. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to connecting with you again. Take care.